Love is our true divine nature, and our heart serves as the intersection of the spiritual and physical, connecting our soul with our body as the conduit for anchoring our divinity onto the earth plane. Embodying our divinity is the key to our ascension and to manifesting our highest destiny in this life. The teachings of the heart are alchemy. Join spiritual mentor and channel Jennifer Spohr each week on a sacred journey to lift the veil to remembering your divinity and meet other beautiful souls who are living the path of the awakened heart. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm kind of like giddy excited today to introduce this guest to you, just because we had such an amazing conversation before we started recording today, and I know you're just going to love all of the gifts and the wisdom that she has to share today. And without further ado, our guest Barbara With is joining us today. She is an international peace activist, award-winning author, publisher, psychic channel, and co-founder of Conflict Revolution, World Peace One Person at a Time, starting with self, a revolutionary way to resolve conflicts of the psyche as a pathway to world peace based on her work channeling the angels and Albert Einstein. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you, Jennifer, for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you, and um, I can't wait for what's going to unfold in this conversation today. I'd love for you to just kind of start off by telling us more about how you landed in this work, right? Because I know, I do channeling work as well, and it really just is such a fascinating journey to how all of that unfolds.
Yes, absolutely. And mine was really indirectly, it was through my music. I was a musician at a very, very young age. I started writing music. And that process is just like channeling. It is channeling. And in high school, I had a friend whose mom was a psychic, and she was always just an antenna, she said, as she picked up, higher information. So I studied with her for a long time, and I was a big Edgar Casey fan and Jane Roberts, kind of the old school psychics of the time. And in 1987, I started spontaneously automatic writing. So I knew what it was, but it was still exciting that, whoa, look at this.
Yeah,
And,
I'm doing
and yeah,
it.
and you know how it is. You kind of have to kind of teach yourself, what does this mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, how do I use this? And so I started doing readings like my mentor did, and I was always just a antenna. And in 1993, I started to do group channeling with two women, Teresa and Kimberly, and uh, that was really the beginning of everything that then transpired as far as getting to Einstein. Because when they asked in a reading, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
Because when I asked in my automatic writing, they were sound. And I was okay with that. I was a songwriter and a musician, so sound was perfectly fine with me. So when the girls asked and they said, "You can call us angels," I thought, oh, really? Now there's angels. And the three of us decided we didn't care who it was, because what they were telling us was so profound and was changing our life so much. And these angels said they had this revolutionary way, this theory about how to resolve conflict of the inner world in each individual that would lead to world peace. And they needed humans to test it on. And there we were. So that was the beginning of a really wild ride. And that book, Diaries of a Psychic Sorority, Talking with the Angels, is our actual diaries during that time of us going through this incredible experience. And because of that book, I was asked to do an interview with Princess Diana on the 1 year anniversary of her death from Beyond the Grave by this paranormal tabloid in London. And I didn't even know I could do such a thing, but I gave it a whirl, and it was a beautiful interview they didn't want, because it was about peace. It was
Yeah.
about making peace. And from there, Party of 12, the afterlife interviews evolved. And my agent and I made a long list of who else might want to talk. besides Diana, and Einstein wasn't even on it, actually. And when we got to John Kennedy, he said, smart man, he said, put your list away. We'll tell you who's coming because we've been working on uh, this book, and we want you to take dictation, basically. And when Einstein came up and I channeled him, I was shocked. It was the voice of every reading I've ever given. It was, and you know how it is when you give a reading, you know what voice is yours in that sort of bigger picture of where you go. And it took me many years, probably about 3 years, to really digest what that meant. And in 2005, I did a book just for him because I loved him so much now. Now that I knew who he was, he was the voice of sound in my first thing. It was just overwhelming. But when I did Imagining Einstein, I had no idea what he was going to tell me. I just thought, oh, let's do a little book. It's a 100-year anniversary of E equals MC squared. Let's channel some stuff and see what he says. And he gave me a unified field theory that he didn't do in real life, including what he calls the map of human consciousness and a scientific, quantifiable definition of compassion as the fifth fundamental force of the universe. And then really articulated why this theory he was bringing forth proved what the angels, right,
Right.
had taught us about how this new way to resolve conflict. It was his theory that proved scientifically why what we did worked. So that's a lot to digest for really for anyone, and why it's taken all these years, because I think it's a
Uh,
monstrous story.
you're sharing that and all. I'm just like, I want to devour that that book. I want to like dive right into that.
You'll appreciate it. Yes.
That's so amazing. It's so amazing what you share about how that evolves. I'm channeling in the process of channeling my first book now, and it's similar to what you were saying about how they initially identify themselves and then how that evolves over time. I've experienced something similar on this journey too. um it's just so amazing to me, the whole experience, and all the support and just all the limitlessness and expansiveness that is always around us, and all we have to do is use our free will, right, to choose to open up to it. Our power as creators is just so still hugely underutilized. I feel like we are very much still like in the infancy
Yes.
stage.
Yes. And I
Yeah.
think what I love about the work that Einstein's brought forth is that conflict revolution, we call it, because it isn't conflict resolution. Conflict resolution is where you meet with the party that you're conflicted with, and you make sure you're having compassionate conversation, and you're picking up on clues, and you're exchanging stuff. And conflict revolution is a very solitary process that doesn't have anything to do with that, except that the things that trigger us are our guideposts. They're our roadmap inward, because we revolve our focus off the person we think made us feel this way or did something to us, and bring it back to ourselves. And his maps, not only are they so simple, now this is the hardest work you'll ever do,
Mhm.
but the structure of his instruction is so simple. And he says this in the next book is called Einstein et al. Manifestation, Conflict, Revolution, and the New Operating System. And this is where I illustrated it. And the um, the simplicity of the human maps bring conflict down in the whole operating system to one microscopic point, and that is between the intellect and the intuition.
Mhm.
And he says all conflicts that manifest in the lens of our world are rooted there because intuition is always going to tell you the next most advantageous step for the
Mhm.
good of the whole. It's the voice of compassion, it's the voice of God in everyone. Everyone has it, intuition. But what happens is it gets into the intellect, which is where the decisions are made, like actually implemented. If you're going to turn left, this is the part that makes your arm turn left, not your intuition. It informs your intellect. And we have free will. We've been given this free will, so like you had said, that we make the choice, that we have to use our free will to
Mhm.
make the choice to choose to align to basically compassion or God or as you're talking about. And it changes how everything manifests. That's
Mhm.
the miracle we're tapping into.
Yeah. And, and as you know, our decisions in the mental space can be influenced, right, by our experiences as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, right? And
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just okay, so the very basic system, and this will help us address that, is
mhm,
that we have these three human dimensions. They're like spiritual organs. One is emotion, and these are with capital E. I'll put a capital E, emotion, in your solar plexus, and we separate them so we can experience them separately, individually. Intuition in your heart chakra, and intellect in your head. And then you have a witness, someone who you can intend to, okay, I'm going to, intend today, I'm going to watch myself. I'm going to see what I'm thinking. I'm going to see what I'm feeling. I'm going to see what intuition is telling me. So that's really the basic structure. And it encompasses just about any structure that I've ever heard for how to do this, as simple as it is. And the piece of the what you're talking about, the
mhm,
fluctuations of the thinking that can overtake that decision making process is a lot of things. Some of it is we have these emotions, right? Emotion coming up from our solar plexus. And we've been taught, only feel the higher level ones or, stay away from anger. And it's really the opposite. And it's so good to see in 2024 that so many people understand that because when we started this in the 90s, people were
mhm,
like, what? No, even the new age thing was all about, no, just stay in the higher frequencies. Like, no, we need to move it all through. It's the creative fuel that's part of creating the chair and the table and the lamp and the separation. So we want it to move through our body. And also because it informs intuition. Like intuition taps into that voice of God and is going to tell us the next best step to take for the good of everything. And you get into intellect, and if you have emotions you haven't felt that are stuffed down in there, they trigger patterned thinking, right? From
mhm.
the past or other lives, or I think we pick up a lot of stuff because we're all
Oh, yeah.
one and we're all part of Earth.
I do too.
So,
There are a lot of many aspects of us. Yeah.
yeah. So what happens here in that intellectual place is this is where all the trouble begins. Everything else is flowing. Your emotions are self-regulating. I mean, you don't control them in the sense that you go, at 10 o'clock, I think I'll do some joy and then I'll get some anger in it, one. You don't, they come, they flow, they're a wave. You have to ride that wave and have a process with which to deal with them and move them all along. How do we do that? We've never been
Mhm.
taught. We've never been taught.
Yeah. So fascinating. Uh, I'd love for you to share with us. You were talking about the world peace work earlier. I'd love for you to share with us more about that. I mean, what is that's the big question, right? It's like, what's the key to world peace? I believe it starts with each one of us, right? When we have a clear sense of self and when we're operating from that higher consciousness, right? I believe, that conflicts and all of that, it simply stems from a projection of
Yes.
someone who has something that's unhealed, right? Like that's, or that they've forgotten that's influencing their decisions. Um, yeah, share with us.
Well, all those years ago, when the angels said, we're here to teach you world peace one person at a time, starting with yourself, and the byproduct will be world peace.
Mhm,
Uh, then in the 90s, it was like a lovely idea, but nobody felt any kind of urgency about it. So this work has been a mission. I've done this work. I've written 6 books, 7 books on the topic through the years, but I've always also had to do other things. I was a realtor and I've worked in food service, and
mhm,
I have all this rich, and besides being a musician, I have this rich history. And in a couple years ago, 2023, I thought, the world, I thought it was in bad shape back then.
mhm,
I thought it was in bad shape in 2007, where I gave up my life and took Einstein, imagining Einstein, around the world because I felt like we got to get on this stuff, man. But 2024, 2023, is particularly was after the 2 major wars that started. I thought, I'm not getting any younger. I've been doing this work a long, long time, and I know how powerful it is. I know how true it is. It's been tested and retested and tested to miraculous results. And I'm going to spend pretty much the rest of my natural life bringing this message to the world, and especially to wonderful young women like yourself, because I feel like, as an elder in this movement, and a long, long time of research and development and wisdom in it, it's my time to pass that on and to help the evolution by reflecting back to you and you guys all who are on the front lines. I know how much it takes to do this work that you're doing, not just the work, but then to get it out, to do the podcast, to organize it all. It's a huge amount of passion and dedication, because we need it. We need it desperately. And so I gave up all my little jobs. I had like 6 other little things that I did. I was managing the LaPointe Center for the Arts, and there was all, and I gave them all up. And I said, "This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this to the world. I'm going to go on a world peace tour until I'm dead." Whatever that is. Now, if I live as long as my mom and dad, I'll be here another 25 years. But so last year I set out, and I didn't have a huge plan. And I found this website called Trusted House Sitters. It's actually pet sitting. So I arranged to pet sit my way across the UK for about 3 months in Europe. And then I took some side trips, and in that time I sought to get my books to people over there that I wanted to, Russell Brand and Matthias Desmet and David Icke and other people. And I did some other peace things there, some peace rallies with, the Palestinian situation, and Julian Assange in London, and I got in a whole bunch of work done in Europe, and then came back here, and I was at the Science of Consciousness conference in Arizona, put on by the University of Tucson, and found out it was a 30-year conference, mostly scientists. And they invited me to speak like this little teeny part, and I came away from that like, okay, this is it. This is absolutely what it is. It's Einstein. It's so brilliant. It couldn't be anything else. And everything I saw at that conference was, mathematically more correct, more filled out, but theoretically, nobody even came seriously close to understanding the compassion was the fifth fundamental force of the universe. It's brilliant. So that's kind of my peace tour. And I covered like 23,000 miles, and I got to get in front of bigger audiences. And then I came home. I live in a little island. It's just beautiful in the summer to reground and relax. And I'm preparing um, for year 2. I leave in the fall, depending on what time we air this, I'll either be leaving or I will have left. And it starts in Minneapolis on the 3rd of November at Lake Harriet Spiritual Community. And I will go from there, making my way down to Georgia and probably over to Oslo and back to Barcelona, where the next conference is from the Science of Consciousness. So it's really exciting. And I hope to connect with more people like you who I've met in person who might want to like have me come and show you and teach and train and channel. I'm totally open to spirit guiding me wherever I need to go. And I've got several invitations already. So we'll see how that all shapes up.
I love that so much. Is there a particular focus or message you're feeling called to share in your year two, as you said, as you're in your travels again?
I think I would like to get more hands on this year.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, I did a lot of sort of peripheral stuff. Like I didn't do a lot of teaching, I didn't do a lot of channeling while I was out, but I did a lot of um, just grassroots conversation. People in the UK, well, why are you here? Well, I'm on a world peace tour, and off we went with conversation. And I think what's exciting is to say to people, don't underestimate how important our personal work is because it's so hard sometimes and it feels
Mm-hmm.
so fruitless sometimes. It's like
Yeah.
I've been doing this now for 70 years. When am I ever gonna, it feels like that sometimes, but we have to constantly have that vision that when we're doing this, and this is what Einstein's unified field proves, is that when we do this internally, we will naturally manifest peace. It won't be that we'll do this and then we can all go out to the front lines and have negotiations. It will be that
Yeah.
transition, that elegant, beautiful transition into the
It's a
manifestation.
frequency shift.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that so much. There's so many rabbit holes I could go
I know,
down.
I know.
Where can we find your books?
You can find my books at barbarawith.com or Synergy Alliance LLC. Synergy Alliance is really my publishing site, and the psychic sorority and all the girls are there. And then Barbara With is dives more into my readings and the work that I'm doing. I have a meditation series going on, and I have some downloadable courses on it that I'm really excited to have made in this day and age where there's, some incredible videography just
Mm-hmm.
available at your fingertips. And I'm also a videographer, so and then in 25, I really want to offer a two specifically right now, a how to channel course, like to work in small groups with people who really want to go deeper into their own intuitive power and what that means, whether you want to channel like I do or you want to empower your own personal intuitive process so that you can be more guided by intuition. But I'm going to do that, and I'll continue to I do these meditation study groups, remagnetization we call it, to get the body back in line with the earth. And then I'm going to do a longer term conflict resolution study group too, because there's so much to dig into. There's
Yeah.
just so much. So I got a lot, and that's barbarawith.com, and I'd love to see anybody. I'd love to see people come and share in this.
Yeah. Such an abundance of goodies, and all of the links that you mentioned we'll have for everyone who's listening in the show notes as well for direct access. Um, do you still work with clients privately?
Yes.
You do, yes. Tell us more about that. What is an experience that someone can expect to have in having a session with you?
Well, I do it a couple different ways. What I think is the most spectacular way is we do what we call a dissertation. So I invite you to sit back and empty your mind and prepare just to receive this download of really intense information that I think people only get about 10% while you hear it the first time, which is why we record it. And I suggest that you transcribe it and read it as well. And it'll
Mhm,
last over time because as you hear it and you start to like they'll help you put two and two together. Like, what does that mean? How do I do, and how it applies to situations that you're dealing with.
mhm.
And then as you start to learn what those pieces are, you go back and you can hear deeper information within it. And then there'll come a time where they'll say, we open for questions and conversation, and then you can talk, or some people can't because they're crying like so hard. And
Yeah.
or they answer all the questions and they have different questions, and but there's an opportunity to have some conversation. And then the other way that I do it is and this isn't as much because it's I think people are looking for that
Mhm,
kind of experience, but we can talk. If I do this often, if people want to contact somebody who's passed on,
mhm,
is that I can, we can sit and we can just have conversation, and I can sort of translate while
mhm.
I'm not in this, you know, channeling mode. Uh, but that is and actually I also do one-on-one conflict resolution coaching. So we take you through a conflict of your own and give you time to work it and learn the process.
So fascinating. What are some common questions that you find that clients will ask that you find are a common thread, right, amongst most of us, all of
Yeah.
us?
I think people want to know some past life stuff.
Mhm,
I think as a rule, um, and it's always so fascinating to me that I can sit there and make up the story on thin air and have them go, "Oh my God, that explains so much." That, and I think people want to know their purpose.
mhm.
Like, what am I supposed to be doing? Why am I here? And because we're so culturally oriented to strive to achieve something
Yeah,
outside here, which is not a bad thing,
mhm.
but we forget that our purpose is to be here to learn how to love ourselves.
To be us, yeah,
Yeah.
to evolve, yeah.
Yeah, and that's, it takes a lot of the pressure off of thinking there's something else out there, like you're supposed to learn how to go that path and do that thing. It's like, no, that'll come. And I think if people are lucky, this is just me because this is how I am. I've had so many different paths. Like I said, I've always been doing this mission, but I've been guided to, I became a development director of a nonprofit, I did. So to live this sort of integrated, intuitive life is, is, I think it's kind of the point.
Yeah, I believe that too. It also, it takes courage. I think you briefly touched on this earlier in our conversation is that it takes work to do this work, right? To because connecting with yourself to be tapped in to get the guidance is one thing. That's a big deal. It's a big deal. Awareness is a big deal. And then it's you know, then taking that, right? And taking action on it to
Yeah.
to integrate it. Yeah.
And I'm working on this piece I wrote years ago that I'm upgrading. It was called Why the Secret Doesn't Work and How to Fix It. And when I first wrote it, I was really appalled that the movie went into this thing about don't feel those low vibrational feelings. And so much of it was focused on manifesting diamonds and money and all this. But now that I'm writing it, rewriting it, I'm realizing how deeply we have become a consumer society of
Mhm.
external focus
Yeah.
that keeps us from ourselves. And it's designed that way, the way that marketing and propaganda, it's designed to keep us from ourselves. So it's an
Yeah.
exciting time to be turning inward.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be here when it's changing, just in the several years that I've been focused on this work, not nearly as long as you, I've felt, and witness this a tremendous shift, right? It feels like we're still very much in a place of turmoil as a collective, but we really have come a long way.
I think so, and I think
Yeah.
there are so many of us. They used to tell us this years ago about there's millions and millions and millions and millions of people who are tapped into compassion, and you can't even just like organize them or describe exactly who they are, or it's just that when you tap into compassion, you're in that energy field. And so
Mhm.
you got the synchronicity, you got the power that working for the good of all gives you. It's the real power, not the power over us to keep us down or
Yeah.
silent, but the power of that miraculous manifestation that can, change the outcomes without really,
Miracles.
yeah, yeah, miracles. And I'm seeing it everywhere, even amidst the turmoil. I'm seeing these, and I've been watching, of course, for decades, and watch. I remember back in the 90s, we did a channeling series called World Peace in a Day, and it was when some war was like imminent. Like the world was freaked out. And this was in the 90s before there was like mass instant information all over the planet.
Yeah.
And we did this conflict revolution, and a couple days later everything just backed away. And you can't prove anything, but all of that kind of research I see now, I see so many things emerging in up through all of the whatever it is that's going on. I don't want to name it, but it's pretty crazy out there right now. But it's really that ripe field of quantum chaos for us who are intentional to go in and get some focus in it. And
Yeah.
I'm
Well, and that's
excited.
what often happens too, is when we feel like everything has come to a boil, or shall I say more like, boiling over, really, that it's, we're on the precipice of something, right? I feel like just as with us individually, it's like that stuff has to come to the surface to be
Yes.
released in order for us to make that frequency shift. And I feel like that's what's happening right now too.
Yes, and what I take heart too from is that as the microcosm, so the macrocosm. So when Kim and Teresa and I were starting to fight, have conflicts, and trying to figure, well, what are we supposed to do with this information they've given us? We went through times where we didn't think we were going to all ever come back together, as we had to go away and do our own individual work. And as long as we kept doing the work, we kept coming back together. And in my own personal journey, the dark before the dawn, I've had some really, really intense, traumatic suffering, healing.
Mhm.
And it was part of this wonderful evolution. And so I look outside the world and I said, yeah, that's how it looks. When the old systems are coming down and the new ones are rising up, it looks dark before the dawn, but I'm very, very hopeful.
Yeah. Such a wonderful pleasure and honor and privilege to have you as a guest. Barbara, I'd love for you to share with us, just in closing, anything else that you may feel guided to bring forward to share with our listeners.
I just say this quick. This is conflict revolution 101, just in a nutshell. So when we wake up, we say our prayer of gratitude. Thank you for another day in the most amazing life I could have ever thought of. And whatever else, setting your intention, always setting your intention. One of the intentions we set in the morning is to be our own witness. That I'm gonna take this day, I'm gonna get to know myself, and I'm just gonna observe. You don't have to do anything. There's no process you have to do. Just
Mhm.
observe yourself, thinking, intuition, emotion. And as you go through a day, remember two things. One is when there's an emotional trigger, this is the sign to breathe. And so many times we start to think and analyze, and that is not feeling. It's not feeling. Feeling is using that breath work. And then the other thing is this intellect, this is the tricky spot that you have to really pay attention to. Catch yourself lying to yourself. Catch yourself not respecting yourself. And then intuition will tell you. Intuition will
Yeah.
tell you the next best step to take. And that's world peace, one person at a time.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Barbara. I just loved having you. Thank you, thank you,
Well,
thank
thanks
you.
for having me. I so appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Path of the Awakened Heart. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or pathoftheawakenedheart.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about living with an awakened heart and navigating your ascension journey, visit me at jenniferspore.com.